When I think of just in general, the name of the podcast, Black Executive Podcast, that's my story as a Black executive. But also as the climb continues and tries to educate women on how to move, how to become an executive, how to become a leader, there's so much alignment. And I think your audience would totally resonate with how we navigate systems and how do we teach people that it's really not their fault, that they're just trying to navigate a system that wasn't built for them. So how do we move forward? So that's why I wanted to come on and kind of talk to your audience about the importance of being a community and doing it together.
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black executive perspective.
BEP is on fire. Our audience is growing fast and the impact is real. Now is the time for your brand to grow with us and reach a highly engaged, influential community with real spending power. Don't miss this moment. Email us today at media@TonyTidbit.com. Let's make it happen and put you and your brand in front of the people that matter. We are coming to you live from the new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters regarding race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed. Before we get started, we always want to remind our folks to check out our partners at Code M Magazine, whose mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. Check them out, Code M Magazine, 2Ms.com.
Definitely check them out. And today, we want you to think about this a little bit. So, in corporate America, we are often told that if you work hard, stay ready, and outperform expectations, the pathway will eventually open. But what happens when the pathway was never designed for you? Well, today, we'll sit down with Felicia Smith, who's the founder and chair of The Climb, to examine why Black women build ladders when traditional pathways stall. We'll confront why broken leadership pipelines, the invisible tax of staying in the room, and why collective advancement, not individual wins, redefines leadership in corporate America. Felicia Smith, my sister, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, my sister. Really appreciate it. And this is a very important topic, so we're glad you're here to educate not just Chris and myself, but everyone else who is listening. So we're excited.
Absolutely. So before we get too deep into this, because it's going to be a good deep one, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you currently reside, and kind of where you're from and things of that nature.
I am originally from Charleston, South Carolina, the Low Country. Okay. You can call me Geechee. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. But I have been living in what we call the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, in Northern Virginia for now almost 17 years. So I call this home now, but I will forever be a Charlestonian.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up.
I'll be honest with you. Hold on, though, Chris. I got to say this, though. I never heard a woman come on and say, you can call me Geechee.
That's right.
Yeah, that's our culture.
You know what I'm saying? Because I always heard Geechee was like a negative, from the north, from Detroit. He's like, you Geechee, blah, blah, blah. So I was like,
the soldier story.
Yeah.
That's from the soldier story.
The soldier story, exactly. It wasn't for the rest of you Geechee.
Geechees, yeah.
They wouldn't think we all fools.
The day of the Geechee is over. The day of the
Geechee is over. Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
I embrace my Geechee culture. Absolutely.
That's what's up.
Okay.
That's what's up.
You from Charleston, Low Country, you Geechee.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. I just learned something.
I appreciate that.
The episode haven't even started yet, and I learned some stuff. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlemagne from around there. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, because obviously while we got you here, we want to talk about kind of what you're bringing to the table now. So let me know at a high level, kind of how did your career journey start and get you from where you are to where we find you today?
Oh, interesting story. The short of the long is I never expected to be where I was. I moved into this area to work for the federal government, and it literally was just a VA. They were looking for people to do a financial management leadership program, and they selected me. And so I got into the Department of Defense then and stayed there for 17 years. I never imagined that I would have been on the trail that I was right now.
That's what's up. And what are you currently actively doing right now in the DMV area from a career perspective?
You know what? I call myself a unicorn because I've been with the department for 17 years and I've done a lot of things. So from finance to strategy to risk management to HR, you name it. I call myself the master of the messy middle. So anything it takes to an operation to run, that's what I've done in my career, all the pieces.
That is awesome.
I love a Swiss Army resume. Of
the messy pieces at that, right? I love that. The messy pieces.
Right. Messy middle.
All right. Well, listen, my sister, look, you 17 years, you got a lot of stuff going on. You're going to chat with us about the climb, something that you built from scratch to empower Black women. You're in the government, so you're working hard. And obviously you're in, the Virginia, Washington, DMV area. So the traffic and stuff is insane. So why did you want to come on the Black Executive Perspective podcast to talk about this topic?
Oh my gosh, there's so much alignment. When I think of just in general, the name of the podcast, Black Executive Podcast, that's my story as a Black executive. But also as the climb continues and tries to educate women on how to move, how to become an executive, how to become a leader, there's so much alignment. And I think your audience would totally resonate with how we navigate systems and how do we teach people that it's really not their fault, that they're just trying to navigate a system that wasn't built for them. So how do we move forward? So that's why I wanted to come on and kind of talk to your audience about the importance of being a community and doing it together.
Well, listen, we're so excited that you're here. So look, seem like you chomping at the bit. You ready to talk about it, my sister?
Let's go.
All right. Let's talk about it.
So as we dive into broken pathways and identifying problems without necessarily blaming the individuals, my question to you is, when did you first realize the math wasn't mathing? Because we hear, so of course, Tony and I, from a corporate perspective here, hey, if you don't like that job, just go get another job in the company. There's so many things out there. You could do whatever you want. And then when you go start applying for stuff, they'll be like, no, who told you that, right? So,
we don't need nobody in the messy middles, right?
That's right. And so we realized inadvertently, they didn't mean me. But when did you first realize? It's there, I hope, but because they're saying it. But when did you realize that the math wasn't mathing? And kind of give me, insight into that origin.
Oh, yeah, it was early. So, I knew I'm a first generation college graduate, went to college. My parents said, listen, you work hard, keep your head down, it's going to work out. And that's what I thought, right? So I'm working hard, doing all the things. And right when I was supposed to become like a senior leader and get this promotion, they were like, no, we're not promoting you. And not only did I not get promoted, they put somebody over me who wasn't qualified. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm the person doing all the work. And I went in and was like, hey, why didn't I get the promotion? And there was nothing. I mean, when I tell you it was no tangible feedback, there was no tangible feedback. As a matter of fact, the person told me, well, go talk to so-and-so. They'll be able to give you something. I mean, just nothing. It was just that. And it was at that point that I realized that it wasn't really about my readiness. It wasn't really about how I could produce. I was missing a piece of the puzzle that no one talks about, and that's navigating into the political realm of it. Like at a certain level, I can do all the jobs I want, but when it comes to going into leadership and getting those high level roles, you have to engage in the I'm going to call the soft skills or power skills portion of the game. And I was not doing that. I wasn't intentionally networking and doing all that stuff that I needed to do in order for them to see me as a leader.
Absolutely. That's interesting you say that, because you're 100% right. A lot of times you go in thinking, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to show my boss that I belong. And eventually my boss, through my hard work, will promote me. Right. And 99% of us, that's how we walk into corporate America. And then when you don't see that, number one, I want you to talk a little bit about psychologically, how did that affect you? Okay, because I get it. You finally came up with the antidote in terms of I need to network and I need to, I got to go out and spend some political capital. But you're putting a lot of effort in on a daily basis. over several years, okay? And you keep hearing, and maybe they say, oh, it's just a matter of time. Oh, you're almost ready. Oh, keep doing what you're doing. And then finally they just say flat out, we ain't promoting you. All right? And don't even give you any reason or, hey, we don't think you this, even though that could be bogus, but at least there's a reason. But hey, go ask somebody else. So talk about the mental toll that because some people don't survive that. Okay. And when they hear that, it deflates them and they start losing a little bit of their self-esteem. Talk a little bit about that.
It's time to rethink your protein. AgileLab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilelabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilelabs.com, promo code BEP.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a tough game, number one. I would say the navigation is tough. So initially, first of all, I was just pissed. Let's just start off. I was like, I can't believe, number one, I don't think you really care for me as a person. I think this is more personal than what it means for me to be a leader in this organization. And so I'm pissed, right? Like you just totally overlooked me. A part of it, I thought it was because of my age, all this stuff. So I went through probably about 3 weeks where I was just like, this is messed up. Like this has nothing to do with my production. This has all to do with how you feel about me and what I didn't do for you or how it made you feel to make you think that I was ready. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm really ready. It's just how you feel about me. But one thing about me, I'm going to tell you, I'm a fighter. So after those 2 weeks, I was like, okay, well, this isn't a place for me anymore. I'm going to have to figure out what my next step is. So once I decide like this isn't about me, my thing was, okay, so what's my next step? Because right in here, I already know I'm not going to be appreciated. You're not going to promote me in this organization. I need to figure out what my next steps is. And so they brought in the next person that was I was working for. And what I was very intentional about is, although I was pissed, that I was still going to remain the person that I always was. I was not going to let them disenfranchise me to the point that I came outside of myself, meaning I was being rude or I was like, I'm going to, sabotage him because that person didn't have anything to do with why this happened. So I kept my decor on who I was. And then I started figuring out a plan on how am I going to get out of here? Like, how am I going to go to a place where I know I am more, that someone really wants me to work there? The second thing I did is then I began to look around and say to myself, I'm missing something. I'm missing a big piece of this game. Like if I'm the one doing all the work, writing everything, then why am I not valued? And then I realized I really wasn't a part of the social aspect of it, right? I wasn't, going around talking to people about what was going on in my weekend. I wasn't doing as much, seeking out mentors who I know could be strategic people to be my sponsor later on. I was just kind of working. And the work alone just wasn't enough. And so then I said, okay, I have to position myself better. Who are some leaders that I've worked for in the past that I haven't engaged with? Let me have some office calls. Let me talk to them. Let me pick their brains. Let me start to think about strategic relationships, because at this point, I know me just being smart is never going to be enough. I have to be more strategic. And so that was my mind frame. It was just 2 weeks of this sucks. And then it was like, okay, then what's next? Because I know I'm worth more. You're not going to see it. So let me figure out how I move.
Let me ask you this. I had a similar situation years ago where I was doing the damn thing and felt like I was on a good trajectory. But what happened, and I'm going to get your counsel on this because you're an expert here. I did a different situation than you. And this is what happened. This was my story. I knew I was doing well. And then they ended up, I had all the prerequisite credentials, things of that nature, boxes checked off, so to speak, check the boxes. Now, yes. I didn't have a situation like you where they see me in shorts and I was hanging out and, all of that kind of stuff on the weekends. But the concept was I thought the work speak highly enough for itself because I was told, like you, just go do a good job, keep your head down, and don't cause no problems. Be safe. Be the safe guy, right?
Yes.
Well, they end up bringing a lady in. I applied for it. She ended up getting it. And I knew her resume. And what I was told when I asked, because you have a right to ask, hey, how can I develop myself for the next opportunity? And they said, well, you need to make sure she's successful. You need to make sure she doesn't fail. And I ain't lose it, But I was, disenchanted with that. And a guy named Jesse Crawford told me, hey, you've positioned yourself here at Verizon as a pack animal. You're so good that you've become indispensable if they were to change anything here with you. You have to be good enough, but not so good that they see you as irreplaceable. So how do you navigate that? Because I ended up going on to another company, because once I got that cast as, hey, he's that guy, he's this, this is all he can do, this is all you ever want from him because he's great at it. How do you remain with the organization and still stay ambitious and excited?
Chris, that you bring up a good point, because it is an indispensable piece that happened, right? Also, I was the last expert in what I was doing, and no one else could really do it. So when but for what that person said is so true. The reason why I wanted to make him successful, because I wanted to give him everything I needed to give him, because I was leaving. And I knew I was leaving. So, and because I have such a loyalty to the organization, I still didn't want to see them fail. I still very much wanted to be a part of the organization. And I had put so much time and energy to the work. I didn't want the work to just fall to the wayside when I left. So I was invested in seeing him be successful. And I pushed him and gave him everything he needed, because I knew on the side I was getting out. So to your point, and I tell people even now, you have to be dispensable. So the next job I went into, to your point, I went into it a little different. I don't need to be the expert. I don't need to be the person who's authoring all the things and all that. I need to now be thinking more strategic in building teams that can replace me. Because if they always see me as the person, the one trick pony who can only do that one thing, they're never going to let me out. To your point, they're just going to be like, oh, we need her there. I don't ever want to be needed that much ever again in my life. I want you to say, she has done a good job. What can we give her next? But that was a turning point, to your point, because that was the last job, I think, that I worked for 5 years. Every job after that was no more than 3. I got in, I did a thing, and I got out quickly because of that same thing. Because if I stay there too long, now you think I can't leave, and there's something that I'm doing that is so magical that I have to hold it together. And I never wanted that to happen.
So Felicia, let me ask you this. Let's back up for a second, because the way you handled that situation was great. Okay. Obviously you were mad and you were emotional, but then you said, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to be strategic and I'm going to build a network. Where did you get all that from? Because 9 times out of 10, most people don't know that. And more importantly, they're not set. And then not only that, your attitude, okay, to be fair, right? That's what I want to dive into, because you just don't wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm out and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to strategize and I'm going to do this. Where did that come from? Because that's really the mindset that people need to have, right? And so when you don't do something, how did you know that I need to get political? I need to start networking. I need to do all these things, where most people sit in companies and they never do that. And then when they find out, they still don't know enough. Somebody's got to tell them that this is what you need to do to go to the next level. So first, let's back up. Let's talk about, who were you when you came in? Okay. What was your mindset that you could deal with that type of adversity? And then number 2, how did you figure out that this is the next step that I need to do that's going to take me to where I want to go?
Great question. So growing up, I was raised by my mother and my father, but my great grandmother was a big influence, and she only had a 3rd grade education. But what she always taught me is you got to do a good job, and you never let somebody, for lack of a better term, take you outside of yourself, right? Now, there is going to be a time where you got to pull out that card and let people know who you are, but don't let someone control your emotions and control who you are. So I knew that by that time, I was with the organization for almost 7 years. So there were people who knew me, who had a good perception of who I was, and I didn't want to let a couple of people ruin all the hard work that I had put in place to create a good representation of myself. Whether or not they felt like I was ready, that's your personal opinion. We can deal with that later. But also, I was also very fortunate that my husband, also worked in the business also, right? Oh, okay. And so he also was able to be like, hey, just leave. you don't have to stay there. Just leave, right? But then I had to be honest with myself, and I had to take a moment to look at my environment in a way that I never had. If you are working hard and you always have your head down, then you're not really paying attention to what's going on around you. So I realized that everyone around me who were similar grade and my colleagues were playing a different game. They were going inside the boss's office, having little chit chats. They were doing all these things. So I started to watch that and I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. Like I just come in, boom, 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 get it done. You only hear from me if I need to tell you something that you don't already know, but I'm not just going to your office to chit chat and snooze. Cause really at that time, it's a waste of my time. You're wasting my time. I just want to get the work done. So when I had to be really honest with myself and look around, I'm like, hey, there's another environment going on that I'm just not aware of. And it was that point that I realized that I need more mentors. Like I need more people who are going to hit me to this political realm that I just don't know about. And so that is when I began to reach back out to some of the people that I had worked with in the past, some leaders that I really respected. And I really, at that point, really wanted a Black woman mentor, but could not find any. And that was frustrating with me because there was an aspect of that I know for sure was because I was a young Black woman. And I didn't know how to navigate that piece. And I couldn't find somebody in the organization that looked like me who was willing to mentor me.
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
And I'm going to use that word willing. And so I just had to I was struggling through at that point. I was just trying to glean from other people. I became very aware of my surroundings. I started paying more attention to what was going on. And from that, I began to pick up on, okay, I'm gonna have to start doing things a little bit different. This is going to be uncomfortable for me, but it's going to be the only way they're going to be able to get to know me outside of the work. Because I found that people really want to know more about you than just the work. They want to be able to say that they know what Felicia does on the weekends, which not really. And they want to be able to connect with you. And so I had to learn how to connect. And then this was an institution. This is the Department of Defense. There's a whole hierarchy and bureaucracy and things that I just didn't know. And I needed to learn how it all worked. I needed to learn what it meant to navigate from the top to the bottom. So I started paying attention and asking a whole lot of questions and being vulnerable with people I could trust who would tell me the game, who would say, hey, this is how it really works. Now, I wouldn't tell somebody else that, but this is how it really works. And so I had to be a student again. And from that moment on until now, I'm a student of every system, of every room I go into. I pay more attention. I just spend more time paying attention to what's going on and asking questions. And we don't tell people that. We don't tell women of color that, or Black people in general, that you have to be a student of the organization in addition to the work. You got to look around and know what's going on, or you will quickly be left behind and they will think that you are not ready for promotion because you're not a part of the institution.
I love that. And one of the things is that at the end of the day, you took your destiny in your own hands. Okay. And you decided, hey, this is what I got to do to make it happen. Even becoming intentional in terms of the type of mentor that you wanted to have. Here's the thing though. So you came up with the climb, but if we had to break this down, you are actually climbing this ladder by yourself. Okay. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when you're climbing a ladder by yourself, there's a lot of, you grabbing rungs, you doing a lot of extra emotional work, all right, to try to figure out something just so you can advance. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, because this is one of the things, is that a lot of Black women end up sacrificing just to stay close to the opportunity. Okay. So Chris talks a lot about the Black tax and all that type stuff. I want you to talk a little bit about the invisible tax of trying to climb corporate America alone.
Yeah. Number one, it's lonely, right? And I think that's the biggest tax for me is, and I'll be honest, there's something there, and it might just be me. I haven't been able to figure this out, so we're going to talk it through. You guys tell me. There's also something about when you are a Black woman in spaces and you're very focused and people see that you're focused, they count you as the focused person. And they don't, and so then, you know, all the friendly lunches and all the, hey, you know, let's get together. People don't do that with you anymore because they see you as someone who is focused and is climbing, you know, for their career. And that happened to me early, right? People just was like, yeah, we didn't invite you to lunch because we know you were busy or we know you were doing all these things. And so the road got lonely quickly. And for me, that's something I always struggle with because I believe in community. I believe that if we can talk about it together, we can figure it out, we can make it happen. But that just wasn't really it. And so the more I promoted, the less people I had right to my side. And then the more people were coming to ask me questions that I just really didn't have the answer to. But I believe in what Chris says. I believe in the Black tax. And I believe in if there's anything that I know, I got to be able to share it with you because I had to make so many mistakes to figure it out. Because I didn't have my sister next to me, and because the majority of my mentors were white males, I just had to try to figure out the pieces that were specifically to me. For instance, being a Black woman, like the microaggressions and how do you decide what to confront and what not to confront? And how do you decide whether or not you even want to be at some of these tables or do you want to do some of this stuff? Because as you move up and you become an executive, to your point, there's sacrifices and things that you have to make. And when I say sacrifice, let me be specific about how you become, because you are part of an institution, right? And in some ways, you're fitting into that institution. And so I know in a perfect world, we'd be able to be authentically ourselves and do, you know, and just show up. But when you're a part of an institution, that's not how that works, right? You got to show up in a way, like Chris said, that's safe to the institution. And a part of that means that you become sometimes a person that you don't always recognize in the process. And so for me, that happened midway. And then I had to say to myself, you're becoming too much like the institution. So now you got to figure out who Felicia is. Well, who is Felicia in this space? What does she stand for? What does she value? And so midway through, I had to redefine who I was. And that's why I teach women now, like, know who you are at the beginning. Let that foundation of your values and everything lead you, because I didn't have someone to tell me, I got lost midway because I had people saying, hey, you're going to be the next executive, just give it time. And I felt like I needed to become what I saw around me. And I lost myself in that. And so that was a tax. It's like, wait a minute, I thought I knew who I was. Now I don't. Now I have to refigure this all out. And this is hard. And where is the Black woman who can tell me how to do this? And where is she? Can she please come and tell me what I'm doing wrong? And I didn't have that. And that was frustrating. So I've said a lot of words to say I had to figure it out. And because of that, I had to do a whole lot of self-work in grounding myself in reading a whole lot of books about what my values were and what it means to be a leader and how I really wanted to show up, and understanding people and understanding emotional intelligence. I did a lot of reading and just work to try to fill in the gaps for what wasn't there naturally to teach me.
So, you know, and I understand it may have seemed like you were alone, but God bless your husband for having a perspective since he was in the game that he could keep you encouraged.
Yes.
What is your recommendation? So as a Black male, and obviously you're bringing a female perspective to this, right? A Black executive female perspective. What is your recommendation as it relates to maturity? Because I went through a moment where I had to mitigate whether I was selling out or buying in. Right? Because I had seen, you know what I'm saying? So, and that was tough. That was tough as hell and the reason why it was tough, and when we talk about the Black text, I had seen a guy who had did all of the moves and followed all the protocols that they had established, right? And he was going to all the parties and traveling, doing all this stuff, just extra stuff. And when he got to the point where it seemed like he had did what they had done to get there, they moved the goalpost. They pulled the Lucy and Charlie Brown move on him. You know, the football got pulled away and he fell on his backside. And I was like, oh, hell no. That was the ROI wasn't there. But it's a maturity level where you have to mitigate, is this worth the squeeze? What was your moment, or what should be especially for women, because they're more intuitive and sensitive to things, dynamics. And so they take on those pressures. And they feel like, oh, more often than not, women feel like, is it me? Is it me? I knew it wasn't me. I was good with me. I knew it wasn't me. But what I hear from a lot of females executives that I speak with is, I had to get to a point where that's them. That's their miss. That's their mistake. But that takes a lot of maturity. How do you cultivate that with the women you speak with?
Yeah, we start off with to your point, we start off with your foundation. And that is understanding who you are, right? You got to know who you are, that number one, that you're worth it, but number one, that what your values are. So what are you willing to do and not willing to do? Like, what are you willing to accept and not willing to accept? So in the Climb, we have a leadership program, and that's what we start off with. What do you value? What are your boundaries? What are the things that you're like, no matter what, I'm not doing this thing? And after you write all that stuff out, that has to be your guiding post as you move forward. And when something falls outside of your values, you have to ask the question that you asked, Chris, is like, is this a deal breaker where I can't move on, where I can no longer be a part of this organization? Or have I evolved to a place where I understand myself a little bit better and I'm willing to do something a little bit differently? But that's a real moment, because oftentimes we do feel like, am I selling out, or am I doing this wrong? Have I turned my back on my community? Have I turned my back on others? And I think as Black women, the thing that I learned, and I'm gonna tell you, this wasn't a long time, let's say 5 years ago, is that we have to separate ourselves personally from the business. It ain't personal. I have fully recognized that I am a symbol, and I can be a symbol for good, or I could be a symbol of threat for others. So just me showing up for a lot of people evokes an emotion of whether or not they feel like I'm okay, or they feel like I'm not okay. And so when a person comes after me or tries to attack me or attack what's quote unquote my character, or they try to attack who I am, they're not attacking me personally. They're attacking what I represent.
Right.
And if I learn mentally to separate myself from what I represent, when you say things that are terrible about me because you're trying to break down what I represent, I don't take it personally. Because number one, I know you don't even know me personally. You see me, however many hours a week, but you've never been to my house. You haven't met my husband. You don't know my child. But what I am as a person represents something for you. Either it's good or it's like I detest it. And when I learned to separate those two, it became less emotional for me. It became, oh, you're attacking me because by me being in this position, you feel like you can't be in this position. Or, oh, you don't want me sitting at this table. It ain't me personally, it's what I represent. So then let's deal with what I represent to you, and I can decide how I want to deal with you and how I want to engage you, because you don't know me. And so I think, to your point, that's the level of maturity of being able to separate you as a figurehead and who you are personally, because there are very few people who know you personally. Now, those people can hurt you or make you feel emotional, but the rest of these people, 95% of them have no idea who you are. So right. You got to be able to make those two distinctions as you move up. Because to your point, if not, now you just out there like, oh, they tried to get rid of me and it's personal. It's never personal. You are a figurehead as a Black woman, as an executive. You mean something to people, and it's either good or either bad, but you got to separate that piece, and you got to know what it is, who you are and your foundation. And when it gets rough and you like, am I selling out? You got to figure out which way. For me, right before I became an executive, I had to figure out what that meant for me, right? And particularly with this last year and everything that's happened in the government, I could have said, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm just, this is not what all the values, all the things that I believe in, it doesn't align. But at the same time, I fully recognize that people still need to see my face, that being a Black woman in this organization still matters, that there are still people who are becoming behind me. So if I leave because it all doesn't align, number one, then what happens when there's no one at the table like me who's going to speak up? Now I've left all these people behind to try to figure it out. And so at that point, I realized that my voice there mattered than me just walking away. And so to your point, you got to have conversations with yourself about where you are at every point in your career. I tell women, and then you have to separate yourself as the figure from who you are personally, and know that you as a person personally or you as a figurehead is going to come up with opposition.
You know what, my sister? I love it. I love it. Let's ask this though, right? Because you wanted to share all these things that you went through, and even just talking right there about, if I leave, then I'm leaving other sisters hanging. I need to be there for them so they have some type of mentor, because I didn't have one, right? So talk a little bit about why you built the climb, okay? Talk a little bit about why you built it and what is the climb.
Thank you for that opportunity. So the Climb is an organization that's flat out just committed to the advancement of women of color in leadership and management positions. So whether you want to be the CEO or you just want to be a mid-level manager, we're helping you to figure that out. You know, all this research talks about the pipeline being broken and, you know, people not being prepared. I think it's less of preparation and more of readiness and understanding the systems that they're navigating. You can be smart, but if you don't understand the systems, you can't move. And so for me, when I became a senior leader, lots of women came to see me like, hey, I need advice. Tell me about this. And I'm like, hey, this is great. And I want to help everyone, but it shouldn't just be me and you, right? There should be a community of us because we're all going through the same thing. The questions were consistent. Was this gaslighting? How do I deal with this? Or what about promotion? Or who should be my sponsor? Or my supervisor said this, how should I respond? All these things that were the same. And I would even go as far as to say, I'm in government. I have friends who are in private sector, who are engineers and all types of things. And they were going through the same thing.
Same shit.
And so why are we all correct? Different day. So then why are we all going through this thing separately? Why are we all trying to figure it out separately, navigate it separately? So at that point, I'm like, we need to create a place where we can have the real conversations. We can talk about what just happened in what I consider a community that's safe. Because I will say that particularly a lot of Black women over the last couple of years don't feel safe. They don't want to ask the wrong questions. They don't want to be perceived the wrong way. And I get that. But when they come to the Climb, when they come to a Climb meetup, or they come to a panel discussion, or they come through our leadership program and they get their mentor and their coach, they have the opportunity to be honest about what is going on, to ask those questions. And for someone to say, really, yeah, that's jacked up, but that is how it is right now. And the only way we're going to change it is if we continue to climb and we change how the environment looks. Yeah, I know it feels icky for me to say that you need power and influence because people don't like power, but it's the truth, right? And if it doesn't fit you, that's okay, but that's what it really is. And I don't want to lie to you and tell you it's not that way. And so we needed to create a place where we could say that honestly. And so that's where the Climb came from the thought of together we're better. Let's share what I call the trade secrets. Let's share all the things we know, so that we are all in a place of readiness, because that's what we're calling readiness, right? It's not about you being qualified. It's about, are you ready to navigate the systems that were set up that you were not a part of? And so that's where the Climb came from.
I need you to answer a question for white guy executive Chris. First of all, it's not enough room up here for all of y'all. You just got here. Why can't you be cool? Why did you decide to build bridges and ladders? Once you got here, why ain't you happy enough you getting here? Now you causing more issues for me because we done let you in. Now you trying to open up the back door to the theater so everybody can watch the movie. What do you say to people who think there's only enough? Because we do that too to ourselves. Black folks be like, man, I got to be cool. I got to, you know what I mean? It ain't enough room for you and me and this person in the room because I got to be the person, that token person. And it's not really for all of us. How do you get past that? And how do you teach past that?
So for the white man, I say, first of all, you're thinking about just this one room. There's 1,500 rooms, right? So you just want me in this room, and number one, there's probably 20 more seats behind me. So whether it's 10 more to look like you or 10 or 15 more to look like you and 5 that look like me, you haven't lost anything. You're going to feel like you lost anything, and that's okay because you feel like you want a room to look like you because you've been conditioned to that's what it looks like. But also I know the value I bring to this room, and if you had 5 more of me, your room would be more powerful. That's what I'd say to him.
Good job.
But what I say to us, who, to your point, we really struggle to climb together. And I believe it comes from, I would say, all the way back to slavery. But I'll start here in we have been conditioned to believe that there's only one spot. That if Felicia's there, that means Chris can't be there or Tony can't be there. And that's a lie from the pits of hell, because there's room, and you have to believe in your heart that there's room enough for us all to exist. So if you don't fundamentally believe that there's room, then you're always going to think that you got to take from somebody else. But you have to believe that there's room. Now, is there room enough for all of us to get through on the same year? Probably not. I might promote this year. You might promote next year or 6 months from now. And it might take time, but I need you to know that there's all room. And making me look bad so that you can look good doesn't provide room. And what it also does is makes us look foolish, because there ain't but two of us anyway. If the two of us fight and they like, yeah, that's how they do. They over there, which that's a fallacy too, but neither here nor there. I digress. We have to believe that there's room enough for us. And that if I share with you, that me sharing with you doesn't minimize me or you. And finally, and most importantly, I have to know, and we all have to know, that we bring something that nobody else brings, right? So even if Felicia's there, she doesn't bring what Tony brings. And Tony's going to bring something completely different to the table. So Tony's not comparing himself to Felicia. Tony's running his own race. Felicia's running her own race. And we're sharing with each other to get our speed up, to get our competency up. But you have to look at it that way, because you look at it as we're competing, then you're always going to think, I shouldn't tell Tony something. And so we have to get to a point where we believe that there's enough room and that what we have is value added, and it's different than our sister or our brother. And they're not going to cancel me out if we're both there together. And we are still very much challenged in that area.
And so I definitely hear you, right? And the question Chris asked you as a white executive, it was a great answer. All right. The challenge, though, and these are not excuses, these are real challenges. So at the end of the day, you're right. There's plenty of rooms. But let me ask you this question. How many times have you seen multiple Black people promoted at the same time? Okay.
Very few. Very few times.
So there you go. But there you go, though, right? So if you don't see that, right, then you think you are in you think there's only enough room. Yeah, look, Felicia, I hear you, my girl. I'm right with you. We got to do this together. But at the end of the day, all right, where I don't see a bunch of us, I see a lot of white people getting promoted at the same time. Okay, let's be fair. But I don't see a lot of Black people, men or women, get promoted at the same time at the same organization. Okay, and so it creates, and that's, we kicked this episode off talking about rooms that were not created for us, systems that are not created for us. That's what that means. All right. And so I'm agreeing with you that, hey, we shouldn't be stabbing each other in the back or pushing each other or demeaning each other or degrading each other so one of us can jettison to the front. Right. And I've been in those situations. Chris, you've been in those situations, right? Well, another brother or sister, they're looking at, they'll say hi, but they trying to keep you arm's length away, because at the end of the day, they're like, we can't be two of us walking around together. All right. Being friendly, because that could mess me up. All right. And that's how they thinking. They ain't thinking to mess you up. It's thinking about mess them up. Right. So I get it. So, but you understand my point here, right? Is that when you don't see multiple people at the same organization that look alike from a person of color standpoint, Black women, Black men, whatever, being promoted simultaneously or within a certain period of time, you start believing it's got to be for me. Okay. And so at the end of the day, based on that, how do you, because you're telling women, hey guys, we got to be this together. Based on that reality, how do you keep them together? Now, look, let's be fair. And I want to hear more about, is it just people in the government? Or is it women that's coming from the private sector, the government, the whole 9 yards, right? Because they're coming from different areas, then you're 100% right? But if they're all in this group, right, that probably could be a challenge. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes. So I'll start with the climbers from all areas, all industries, not just government, private sector, all across. But what I really want us to do, and what I challenge women to do, is in order to be successful as an executive, you have to change your mindset, because everything that you see is not facts. It's not, and I'm having a hard time articulating, but everything you see isn't just the truth, right? Perception is 9/10 of the law. Of course, you perceive a thing, but just because you perceive it that way doesn't mean it is true. And to your point, we don't all promote together, right? In a year, if there's 10 promotions, there's probably only one for us. But I guess then I question, if it's me this year, or if it's you this year and me next year, have we lost if the goal is really for us to change the table? So is the goal self-serving, or is it the goal, how do we build something that looks a little bit different? Because the only way we're going to change the number from 10 to 1 is if there's more of us at the table.
There we go.
Making the decision.
There we go. Exactly.
So then we have to decide, well, what's the goal? Is the goal just, I got to be first? Okay, then you're first. Then what? What? What do you do?
You holding on like the rest of them, right? They start holding on.
Now what? Or is it, you know what? If there's only 10 and there's only one of us every year, okay, I got there first. So then next year, I'm going to give you everything that I did. I'm going to teach you everything that I did to be successful to get there. So now you got my blueprint. So now maybe if I give that blueprint to 3, maybe we'll get 2, or maybe we'll just get 1. But if we get 1 across 5 years, that's a lot. Of this table was only one of us. So we have to be thinking more about the collective than the individual. And if you're only thinking about the individual, then the climb really isn't for you, right? The climb is about, how do we change systems? We can't change systems if we're just thinking about ourselves in reaching the pinnacle. And so the climb is for all women who are climbing, all industries, to your point. So the individual competition and the organization doesn't necessarily exist. But what does exist is the foundation of, this is a long-term game. This isn't a 1 year, I get promoted, then we're done. It is, okay, now I'm in a place of potential power or influence, depending on what table you're at. Now you may have some power and influence. How do I use that for good? And then how do I use that to reach back and teach somebody else the blueprint for them to become better? But we have to decide whether or not this is a just me by myself game, or this is the collective. And listen, if you say it's by yourself, cool. Like, everybody is not going to be for the committee, right? Everybody's not going to be for the group. Everybody might just be like, hey, I got to do what I got to do. I understand that. But if you're saying that you are for everybody, then to your point, yeah, it ain't going to be everybody all in 1 year. This is going to be a long-term goal. And I'm a person, I play the long game. I don't play the short game. Things that happen shortly, okay. But what's the long game looking like? What are we really doing to move it forward?
You talked openly about teaching or navigating the individual success versus the collective success. So let me spin that on top of the head and give you the antithetical of the collective failure. Because as Black folks, we have this albatross over our head that I'm representing the diaspora. And as Black women, I'm representing the diaspora. I'll give you the most practical example of a community, sigh, was when the DC sniper was a Black dude. We was like, oh, damn. Because that wasn't our jam, right? Now, all of a sudden, everybody looking at us like all of us are.
Well, we serial killers, man. Now. Right.
But they hit that white serial killers. Man, and
why it's got to be a brother?
Why it's got to be a brother? Because it was white serial killers forever, and that was just a bad apple. Just like, the police brutality, they're just a bad apple. But when we do something, they make it a collective failure, as opposed to an individual failure. How do you talk to your people about being able to absorb and move beyond those individual failures that they're trying to make a collective failure? See, we gave one of them a chance, and look what happened with her. So I'm not giving none of them ever a chance again. Go ahead, Tony.
And can I add on to that? I want to add, because you said something a minute ago. You was like, how you say, hey, it's not personal and this and that, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is personal. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do target you. Mm-hmm. Okay, because you are standing out, because you are the smartest, because they're afraid of your success, that you may be getting their job, right? So to Chris's point, how do you deal with that too? Because sometimes, let's be fair, sometimes it is personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I still don't consider that personal. I consider that what I represent for you. I represent the smartest person in the room. Okay, cool. But that's just my, okay, cool. But But to Chris's point, and this is challenging. Let me start off by saying a lot of this is nuanced, and I will say a lot of this is mental work that you got to do internally to deal with the day-to-day of going into the workplace and dealing with everyone trying to treat you like a monolith.
Yep.
Because at a table of 10, white men, we don't say that they all are the same. We allow them to be different people,
Absolutely.
even for most things. But when it comes to particularly Black women, it's like if Felicia's loud and she laughs loud and she's boisterous, then every person behind her should be the same. I am a big proponent of, no, I won't be. That's one of my deal breakers. I won't be a monolith. That the way that Felicia interacts is going to be different than, make up a name, Tanya is going to be when she comes next to me, behind me, beside me, whatever. And so my mistake is my mistake. Now the question is how do you change the institutions to believe that? That is tough, right? Because we are held to the standard of, if Felicia did it, that means all the women behind her are going to do that. So that's why I'm also, and we talked about early in the story, I was very careful when I was pissed that didn't reflect on my work. Because if it reflected on my work, that means it reflected on Tanya that was coming behind me or anybody else, right? So because it's hard to separate the institution for them to see us separately. I can say it all day, but it's sometimes hard for them to see Felicia differently than the next Black woman. But what I tell Black women is don't feed into that, right? True enough, if I mess it up real bad, they're going to have a hard hill to climb. That's just the truth.
I mean, that's a fact. Those are facts.
Hard hill to climb.
Those are facts.
It's a fact. But don't let that make you feel like you have to now make up for all the sins that Felicia did. But what you can do is be true to yourself, to continue to work in excellence and continue to show what your navigation looks like. Your navigation isn't going to be everybody else's navigation. And hopefully, I can't say that's really going to happen. Hopefully that turns things around. But honestly, I've seen where it sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes it's just like, well, Tony messed it up. So now all the rest of us just kind of screwed. So it's tough to come back. I'm going to be honest.
I had to mess it up. Tony messed it up, right?
Tony messed it up. But I don't think that truth should stop us from being ourselves, though. Because if you try to run behind that mouse, that mouse trap or whatever, you're going to constantly be trying to recreate yourself. And then that's how you lose yourself in the system.
Correct.
And now you don't know who you are because you're spending so much time trying to, contort yourself to be what they want you to be. And then it's not true. And so, yeah, it's not a good answer, but just be you. Well, do the best that you can.
Well, let's do this though. Why don't you tell us real quickly? Tell us how is it working? Tell us about the women that joined the climb and talk a little bit about the successes that's coming out of it.
Oh, wow. So I will talk specifically about our leadership development program. It's called Standing on Her Shoulders. It's really for individual contributors or new leaders or those. And this is really women who are like, hey, I'm thinking about leadership, but I'm not really sure what this thing is, or I don't feel comfortable doing it, or I'm a new manager and they just threw me into the job. I've never managed a person a day in my life. And what we really get to do, what I love about this program the most, is that at the end of the program, you're either very clear that leadership is something I want to do, or no, I don't want to do leadership, but I'm also clear about how I want to be in the world, into the job space. How do I want to move? So we do some work on like literally basic leadership philosophies. What is leadership? They do assessments on what Leadership 2.0 is. We talk about emotional intelligence and what that framework looks like and what it means to be self-aware. And you know what's the most interesting? And they don't teach us this. A lot of people don't even know what emotional intelligence is or how theirs is playing out in the workplace. Because when you talk about, maturity, a lot of that's emotional intelligence and being able to regulate yourself, to be able to read a room. And so I think it's so powerful to teach women who are coming into the game this at the front end. Man, I wish someone would have gave me emotional intelligence book 15 years ago. I would have started changing the game a lot more earlier. And so we're teaching them about that piece. We're bringing in women who are already executives in a fireside chat, where it's just them and the ladies. We're going to do it next Thursday. And they're just talking about their experience and telling them the things that they went through and how they navigated. And it's powerful, to your point, Tony, when you can see someone who's already done it that looks like you tell you the story, you feel empowered because now it's not just you. And another aspect that for every module that we cover, the program's 5 modules, 5 months, we always talk about the portion of it that's unique to being a woman of color, right? So when we talk about leadership, we talked about how sometimes our leadership is taken out of context. Sometimes we're, the angry Black woman, or if we roll our eyes, we got an attitude, or if we laugh too loud, we're just loud. Like all of these things that play into your leadership that others don't have to worry about, that we have to worry about. And so being able to see the ladies look like, you're right, I am dealing with that, and us being able to talk through how you navigate those things has really been, we're in our 3rd cohort, such a blessing for me to be able to teach that. But also coming out of those cohorts, we've had some women who have promoted, who've gotten to the next level, women who have decided based on what they've learned, they want to even change their career field, like go into something completely different because now understanding who they are, they want to approach their careers differently. So programs like that and the Climb Reset, all of those things are really focused on tooling, giving them the tools they need to survive and to thrive in these spaces in a way that I never got back then. But if I had got it, I'd be a bad sister. I'm a bad sister now, but I'd have been a real bad sister if you gave it to me a long time ago. And so, yes, I'm so grateful for the organization being able to do that, and particularly for our leadership program. That one we've been doing for 3 cohorts. In the fall, we'll launch one for mid-level managers where we'll get into 360 assessments and what's your hallway file and, how do you present and speak in front of audience, all these things that people don't talk about that you are judged on, particularly when you go from that pinnacle of just being a regular team lead to a mid-level manager to a senior leader. And so I'm so excited about that. I got wrapped up into that program, and I actually forgot what the question was because I just got so excited about the program.
No. You answered it, my girl. You hold on. Talking about somebody passionate. Great. I love it. All right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just chatting. We sit here. I started to go get some popcorn, and you know what I'm saying? I was like, I ain't got no butter, but I'll still make it happen because I'm gonna sit here and just listening to her and how so. But here's the thing, real quick, and we want to get final thoughts. I'm so excited what you put together, my friend. Okay, because you're changing lives and you're giving people, women, a platform so they can change their lives and they can climb to where they want to go. And then more importantly, and one thing about I was in the military, right? And one thing about a ladder, when you start climbing, right? When you get to where you want to go, you can turn around and put your hand down and pull somebody else up. And so that's the exciting thing that you're building, and it's beautiful. And if it's any person to be the head of that, who's got the passion, the intellect, and more importantly, the love for their fellow sisters and human being, is Felicia Smith. So you ain't got to apologize for forgetting the question because you definitely answered it a million times, my girl.
I got wrapped up. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So if you had a final thought you wanted to leave with our guest, your guest now, what would it be for them to kind of take away as a take home kind of moment?
Oh, I love that. It's not your fault. The challenges that you're having, the things that you're going through, it's not your fault. You're not any smarter. Any less, or I'm saying less smart. You're not any less than of any of your colleagues or your coworkers. You're not less prepared. You're not any of those things. You are navigating a system that was not set up for you. You came into this with the best intentions, but you can't navigate it alone. You can try, you may, and you're going to make mistakes like I did. But what I'm saying is, why do it alone? With organizations like The Climb, my organization, where we are really building community. And what you need to really go to that next level is community and focus for someone to help you to understand the pieces that you don't already understand. And I was fortunate to have people surrounded by me who supported me in that way, but I know a lot of women who did not have that. And so if you don't have that and you need it, then I need you to go to theclimb.org and join.
There we go. That's what's up.
My girl, she's killing it.
Man, let me ask you this. How else can a Black Executive Perspective help you? Because obviously they can go to theclimb.org and get information. But what big, I know you said you got something coming up in the fall. Give us a couple of highlights or, a vision board of what you see for 2026 and things that you're excited about. And then they can also go to theclimb.org and check those things out as well.
Yes. Okay. First, let me start off by saying it should be the-climb.org.
There
Make
we
sure you
go.
put the hyphen in
There
or
we
you're not
go.
going to get to the website.
Okay.
Yeah, get it right now. Get it right.
Yes. Super excited. We are in the first cohort of the year. We do 2 of the leadership program. There's one going on right now. We launch another one in June. And so if you're an individual contributor who's trying to get into the leadership game, super excited about that. But we're also launching our mid-level career in August leadership program to kind of talk to those who are in that mid-level phase. And we're going to open that up during the summer. We are prepping for, in the DMV area, we're going to have a brunch, and I'm forgetting actually the name of the brunch, excuse me, but we're going to have a brunch that's solely for the benefit of a program that we do have that I didn't talk about that's called If You Can See Her, You Can Be Her. And it's myself and the Let's Create organization that's specifically for high school and college girls, where we bring them together. We teach them some basic things that they need to know in order just to navigate the world today, whether that's finances or what it means to go into the workplace. And we give them all mentors and we love on them. We're going to do that in July of 2026. That's for 30 girls. We bring them together for a day and do that. And so our brunch is going to be in benefit of that. So I'm super excited because last year we had 30 girls and it was amazing. So we have that coming up. And then finally, we are going to do a summit also in the fall. And it's really called the Summit Strategy. And that's really to help women to strategize how they move forward. So you're at this point where you're ready to go and you're like, it's not working. Okay, it's not working because you probably don't have the right strategy. Let's talk about what things you need to shift, your perspectives you need to shift, how you look at the workforce, all those things. And so we'll have the summit in the fall of 2026 also.
Wow, that is fantastic. And I hope everyone that's watching this and listening to this, that you definitely dive into it. And even if it's not for you, it could be a male watching this right now. This could be for your wife or your daughter or your cousin or whatever. So here's opportunities here that Felicia has put together to help women be able to get to where they want to go, continue to educate themselves, but also build a family, a community of highly educated women that can share with one another, right? And to her point earlier, it's not about hoarding all the knowledge. It's about sharing the knowledge. So, because here's the one thing though that I'm hearing, right? Your help, and since these are across all different industries, it's still a small world. Right? So you help this sister go over here. She grows in IT. And then this other sister grows in advertising and another one grows in manufacturing. And then one day you're like, I'm done with this industry. Guess what? You now have a network that you could go to, right? Am I correct with that, my girl?
Absolutely.
Or what? All right.
Absolutely.
Right?
Tap into that network. Yes.
Now you got a network that
together.
Exactly, yeah. Right? And so that's the key. Or maybe it helps your daughter get into it or whoever, right? So that's the beautiful thing. But the real beautiful thing is having Felicia Smith here on the Black Executive Perspective podcast, sharing her story, her passion, her love for a fellow human being in terms of what she put together. So definitely everyone check out The Climb. One more time, what is the web address?
It's the-climb.org. So and then climb.org. And then on all of our social media, it's at Join the Climb on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things.
Awesome. That is great. So Felicia Smith, CEO, founder, chairwoman of The Climb, we want to thank you for appearing on a Black Executive Perspective podcast, my sister.
Thank you guys so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed sharing the mics with you all. I loved it. You've challenged me to continue to go forward and do great things.
That is awesome. I'm pretty sure you will. So I think it's now time for
Tony's Tidbit.
And the tidbit today: when the path isn't built for you, Don't shrink, don't wait, and don't apologize. Build the ladder. And as you climb, reach back, because real leadership isn't just about rising alone. It's redesigning the system so others can rise with you. And you heard a lot of that from our sister, Felicia Smith.
Absolutely. So at this time, we want to remind you to check out our weekly segment on a Black Executive Perspective podcast, Need to Know with Dr. Nasinga Burton. On a weekly basis, Dr. Nasinga Burton dives into timely and cultural topics that shape our community and our world at large. You want to tune in to gain these unique insights and deepen and broaden your understanding of issues that really matter to all of us. She's a powerhouse, and you absolutely do not want to miss it.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check out the next episode of Pull Up, Speak Up here on the Black Executive Perspective podcast, where bold, unfiltered voices tackle today's most provocative issues. There's sharp perspectives, real talk, and a call to action. Actually, we're going to get Felicia on a Pull Up, Speak Up. So definitely tune in and join the revolution. That's Pull Up, Speak Up here on the Black Executive Perspective podcast.
And then we're happy to have the hottest new podcast on YouTube right now, and that is a Mixed Executive Perspective, presented by Black Executive Perspective podcast. We have the host, Grace Fuden Corey, and she provides explosive and exciting takes about being a biracial woman in leadership. She talks about fear and purpose and belonging, all the things that Felicia was talking about that women navigate through this world of leadership. She's giving that voice and that perspective that's often unheard. You know, each week you want to check her out. It's honest, it's thoughtful, and it's necessary. So you don't want to miss it. It's a Mixed Executive Perspective. And then, of course, we would be remiss if we did not end with our call to action. Our goal here is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we ask for everyone to embrace LESS, L-E-S-S. The L stands for learn. You want to educate yourself on racial, cultural, societal, corporate nuances. So therefore, you can navigate appropriately and effectively through this world.
Absolutely. Then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy. Now, since you've learned, you can put yourself in the other person's shoes, because now you can understand their perspective.
And then the first S stands for share. You want to share your insights and enlighten others. Don't hide it, divide it. Create collectives of fellowship like Felicia's done, to where you can share these insights and make people feel not so alone in this world.
Absolutely. And the final S stands for stop. We want everyone to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. This is something that is so easy. If you're at the Sunday dinner table with Aunt Jenny or Uncle Joe, and Aunt Jenny or Uncle Joe says something that's inappropriate, instead of sitting there with your mouth open or you're giggling, you say, Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, L-E-S-S, we'll build a more fair and a more understanding world. And guess what? We'll all see the change that we want to see, because less will become more.
We've told you about all the platforms that we have here on our Black Executive Perspective podcast. We want you to check out the catalog, look at some of our previous episodes, look forward to our new episodes that are coming out. Make sure you check out our live on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern. We want you to go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. It's called A Monthly Perspective. It is powerful. It is wonderful. It's new and exciting. You want to check that out. But leave us a review and let us know what you'd like to hear about, because we don't know everything. But then you also want to subscribe wherever you're listening. And where are they listening? Where can they find us, Tony?
My brother, you can find the Black Executive Perspective podcast right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at A Black Exec. For our fabulous guest, Felicia S. Smith, we thank her for joining a Black Executive Perspective podcast. For the co-host with the most, my boy down in Dallas, Chris P. Reed, I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. We learned about it. We laughed about it. We got geeky about it. We're going to keep climbing the ladder about it. We love you. And guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.